Okay. Let's see. See if I can press the right buttons here to make everything work. Beautiful. I'm going to open up my chat window here. Here it is. Beautiful. If you can't hear me, put a little message down in the chat box, and I'll see that. Jay, can you I don't see your video, so can you just in the chat box, if you know how, can you just give a thumbs up or let me know that that baby's working all right?
I don't know how to do that, but I can say yes.
But you know how to do that. Beautiful. Oh, thank you, my friend. Good to have you here. Absolutely. Okay. So here we are to engage in some discourse, some exploration, some reminders of a more expansive, conscious experience of what's happening in this life and the dynamic between the dream of self and the eternal, imperishable nature of self. We get to be here together and remember that we are not a separate thing from Source. We are a modulation of Source. We are an expression of Source. We all just get so captivated with the expression and the modulation and the egoic experience that we forget that it's always connected to Source. Can't not be. There's nothing that's not God. There's nothing that isn't Source. Hence the remembering of I am. The modulation is I am chess, and I am a man, and I am a son, and I am a friend, and I am a teacher. And all of those things, or maybe I'm a good teacher, maybe I'm a bad teacher, maybe I'm a good son, maybe I'm a bad son, maybe I'm somewhere in between, maybe I'm a good man, maybe I'm a bad man, maybe I'm a lovable person, maybe I'm an unlovable person. And all the different modulations of mind that are telling the stories about this experience. We get to remember that that is all happening, occurring, coming and going, arising and passing within the imperishable and unwavering grace of consciousness, of God consciousness, of the One. We are the One. Expressed through a limited form and through a limited egoic expression. That's happening. But it is happening as a modulation, a transience of the imperishable. I've said it before, but it bears repeating. They say the first 50 years of childhood are the hardest, or 60, or 70, or 80, or 100. So today, I want to engage us in that reminder that the self that we call the self the thing we wrestle with, the thing we try to get to behave, the identification. They can feel so disturbed and perturbed and move in and out of all these states of joy and happiness and sadness and grief and anger and pain and betrayal and uncertainty and then certainty and then wholeness and then emptiness and then separation and then inconsequential and then hugely consequential. It's just this self that we wrestle with, that we try to get to behave, that we try to get to stabilize, that we try to get to feel good, is a construct of mind. A dream. You fall asleep at night, you have dreams. The dreams are a construct of the mind. The mind is making stuff up. And while you're in the dream, it feels really real. And so we believe it. It's just the habit. We've been doing it for a long time. Believing the story, believing the mind's interpretations of self, stories of self, some lovely, some very disturbing, painful, wounded. And because we are collapsed into that identity, and that's the only identity we are typically present to, believing, we engage it. We argue with it. We try to get it to behave. Today we're going to talk about the importance of naming what's happening, of identifying parts of the dream that are bothersome, unsupportive, disempowering. The importance, the value of naming parts of the story, but then recognizing most people get stuck there. Oh, I've named a part of the lie of self, the part of my story that is just, part of my childhood wounding and isn't true. And now that I've named it, that's it. I've named it, and now I can see it for the lie that it is, and I can tell myself a truth. But you're just engaging the story and trying to get the story to be a better story. We're going to look at the value of that part of the journey, but then also the more important question, the more important inquiry, which is that story, that dream, that dialogue, that identity that I'm working with is a transient thing. It's a transient coming and going within what? What is the not changing? Something. It is always present, has always been present, can't not be present. What is that? How do we go there? How do we embody that? How do we get familiar with that? So that's what we're going to play with today. So, this practice, this journey, this path of self-realization, of the realizing of the true self, the imperishable self, the eternal self, what I call the God-soul dance, the imperishable love, grace of God moving through a uniquely tuned soul, so that the one source, the one, can know itself in all of its infinite potentiality. That dynamic is pure and authentic and whole. But we have free will to point our awareness where we wish. We're typically pointing it to the story and engaging with that, and that's all that's typically happening. And that veils, masks, obscures our knowing of God, our knowing of soul. It's a dream. And when you're in the dream, you're in the dream. Whatever's happening in the dream, that's all there is. Until you start to wake up from the dream. So it's all about broadening our awareness. That's the practice. The practice is to go from a narrow sense of the world, the form, the things people are saying, the things people are doing, taking it in through the story, through the conditioned self, letting that self, which is dominant, tell us what's right, what's wrong, what's real, what's not, what everything means. Do I like it? Do I not like it? Is it threatening? Is it not threatening? Have I just been disparaged? Have I just been put down? That's what's running. That's the movie. That's the conditioned self telling us, oh, this is what's happening. This is what's real. This is what's okay. This is what's not. And it needs to defend its story and project its story. And part of that story is I'm unworthy, or I'm unlovable, or I'll be abandoned, or I'm inconsequential. I'm insignificant. I'm small. I don't measure up. I'm not worthy. That's the story. And mostly, that dream is so pernicious, is so alive, is so present, that we give it so much power. We believe it. We believe the conditioned self and all of its noise and all of its stories and all of its assessments and judgments and opinions. And we think it's real. And it's, again, just like being in a dream at night and things are happening. And as long as you're in the dream and identified with the dream and not awake as the one who fell asleep and is dreaming, you're now asleep, you're now in the dream, and all there is the dream. That's how most of us are going through our lives and trying to get that damn dream to behave and stabilize and feel good. So it's good to know that, to get to remember that. I had a phone call this morning from somebody very dear to me with a revelation. And she said, oh my God, I got it. This morning I got it, that I have been feeling insignificant. And I go through the world feeling insignificant. Oh, and her sense was that was like the end point. Like, oh, I got it. Now that I've got it. Oh, I've been feeling insignificant. Wait a minute, I'm not insignificant. Hold on, I'm important. I have value. And she had to kind of scan her relationships and her world and remember all the different ways that she engages in the world and people that love her and the things she's done good in life, and cobbled together, recreated the dream of self, the story, from an insignificant self to a significant self. Ah, great relief. Oh, whew, good. I'm glad I got that done. Until the dream changes again. until enough of a trigger and experience in the outside world shatters that good dream and allows the pernicious dream or the disempowering story. And then back to it again we go. Okay, I got to do it again. I got to do it again. I got to recreate the self again, a better self. And it's endless, 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 endless. So there was a fly. I wasn't just, ooh, gotta get rid of that self. So the dialogue we had was in remembering that what was identified was a particularly nasty or unhelpful or disempowering or habitual or it was a limiting part of the dream. And the thought was, well, if we've identified it, we can now see beyond it. But what she was doing was just recreating a better dream. And the question is, wait a minute, what is the truth? Who are you really? That's the ultimate inquiry. What is always behind the story? What is always beyond the dream of self that the mind is running? So here's a good way to feel into it. Things come and go. Within an embrace and awareness that is permanent. I'm going to ring a meditation bowl here. And notice when I do, that the experience moves from silence into noise. And then as that noise fades, there is silence. But as you hear it, feel into and be aware that the silence is always present. The noise is merely an interruption. Silence doesn't go away. The noise interrupts. And our focus goes to the noise. And we forget the silence. There's a beautiful art in being aware of the noise and aware of the silence at the same time. That's the awakened state, is to be aware of the grace of being and aware of the mind's stuff, thoughts. Notice the sound, but be more interested in the imperishable silence into which the sound comes and goes. Notice the sound, but be more interested in and feel into the nature of the silence that never goes. It's a yes and experience. There was silence. Oh, now there's noise. Then there's silence. Then there's noise. There's always silence. Noise comes and goes. you can sit in a meditation and remember there is always imperishable, unwavering silence that is never destroyed. It's simply that a sound arises within the silence and our attention goes to the sound and we forget the silence within which the sound is happening. Imagine, you can close your eyes if you want. There's more silence on this planet and stillness than there is activity and noise. You can think of a vast expanse of desert, ocean, forest. And remember, silence is the ubiquitous nature of being, of isness. Silence is. There is always vast silence. There's far more silence than there is noise. We just go from, our attention goes from one noise to the next noise to the next noise. Our attention goes from one thought to the next thought to the next thought. Silence does not come and go. It is always present, behind, beyond, prior to the noise. Stillness does not come and go. An activity arises out of the pure stillness. Stillness is modulated into activity. Think of the pure, clear water of a stream. And sometimes it's still. And other times it moves into a whirlpool. But it's the same water. The pure water. The purity of water is always the purity of water, no matter whether it is in a movement of a thought, or that thought stops moving and comes back to rest. Awareness always is. Sometimes it's still, sometimes it's in movement, but it's always awareness. Peace does not come and go. That's a wild concept. Peace does not come and go. And we might say, the hell it doesn't. But what arises into the imperishable peace is the disturbance of mind, the disturbance of the dream. When a movie is playing upon a screen, the screen does not change. It doesn't come and go. It doesn't get stained by the movie. It doesn't get perturbed by the movie, the stories, drama, action, horror, comedy, love, romance, fantasy, all coming, going, modulating, shifting, arising, passing within the stillness, the presence, the vast, imperishable awareness, unconditional, loving awareness of the screen. The sky does not come and go. Storms come and go. Clouds come and go. Weather patterns come and go. The sky is unperturbed. always there. Imagine looking up into the sky through clouds, cloudy day, and there's a hole in the clouds, and you can see a piece of the sky. And in that moment, you remember, oh, that's right. I've been identified with the clouds because it was all I could see. And when I was identified with the clouds because it was all I could see, I had forgotten that behind the clouds is this imperishable embrace of loving sky. But now I can see a piece of it. And in that moment, do I imagine that the sky is really only that big? No, I see a piece of it. And then I can remember, I can feel into knowing the expanse of sky beyond the layer of clouds. This is why we meditate. To remember, to see, to get a glimpse of the piece of sky amidst a storm of clouds. And in that moment go, oh, that's right. Oh, I only see a piece of it right now, but that piece is representative of something so much more vast that I can allow and remember. And oh yeah, there's clouds, but there's sky beyond clouds. That's right. That's right. You do not come and go. You do not come and go. The image of you, the dream of you keeps shifting, changing, arising, passing, coming, going. You do not come and go. You are pure loving awareness. I am, you are, everything is. Having a human experience. So when the pernicious or difficult or disempowering thoughts arise, I am insignificant. I am not lovable. I'm a total screw up. No, I'm good. Wait, no, I'm good. I'm valuable. No matter what story arises, it changes, it comes, it goes. It's a small identity. It arises, it passes. A thought isn't there, and then it is, and it lasts 5 seconds, 10 seconds, a week, and then it goes. And when it goes, do you go with it? Is there not something that remains? We're so habituated to be so attentive to each thought and believing each thought that we're not even aware of what remains. We just go from thought to thought to thought. So the question of when that thought goes, what remains, for most people, the experience is, well, the next thought. So consciousness does not come and go. There's nothing that happens outside of consciousness or awareness. Nothing. You have never had an experience, an emotion, a dream that has happened outside of the one consciousness. So that starts to get esoteric. Hence meditation. Meditation, this inquiry, this feeling into the recognition. It starts as a concept and a thought that we marinate in. Oh, wait a minute. All my feelings, all my emotions, all my stories, the things I'm wrestling with and trying to get to stabilize are happening within awareness. So we start to inquire and pull back in our meditation, saying, wait, I don't exist. This whole story of me that I'm wrestling with is a small construct happening within what? And we pull the awareness back, happening within something, which isn't really a thing, but we'll call it something for now. A peace, a presence, an allowing, an unchanging nature of being, the unchanging nature of sky, the unchanging nature of the movie screen, the unchanging nature of stillness, the unchanging nature of silence. My disturbing, troublesome story of self is a product of mind unfolding, overlapping, doing all sorts of origami within the presence of the witness, the observing awareness, which is love, grace, peace, beingness. But we cannot know that truly without the direct experience. Most people skip that. It seems too daunting, too hard to wake up from the dream, to recognize that there's a dreamer. You just keep falling back into the dream because it's so dominant, pernicious, habitual. That's why we meditate again and again and again and again and again, to get a little glimpse of that sky beyond the clouds and get so familiar with it as a feeling, as an embodiment, as a faith. Faith is not an action of mind. Faith is an experience of God. And you can't awaken, embody that without visiting it again and again and again. I've watched people come to satsang, mine, Muji's, Adyashanti, Rupert Spira, all the different teachers. People come to satsang for years. Say, why isn't it sticking? And then oftentimes when they're asked about their meditation, it's like, oh yeah, it comes and goes. Or I use my meditation just to relax, to be quiet. The opportunity is to inquire, to point the awareness beyond the story and say, what is that? What's always there? Thoughts arise, they stay, they last, then they go. I don't go. What is that I? And to feel into it. Not just to read about it, not just to come to satsang and study and listen. That's valuable, it's part of it. But it's only the pointer. There is no truth in this teaching. The teaching itself has no truth. It's just words. It's just pointers. It's allowing yourself to follow those pointings with your direct experience and feel into what they're pointing to. It's like travel. You can read all day long about Nepal, about the Himalayas. You can get very familiar and very intelligent and educated about the people and the culture and the customs and the food and the place, and you can look at pictures and you can watch videos. But then one day you go there. And the direct experience is more five-dimensional. It goes from the flat education, knowing, understanding, into a more fleshed out experience. To feel the warmth and kindness of somebody, a Nepalese person inviting you into their home from a cold, windy trail and inviting you into the warmth by their fire, and to feel the gaze of love in their eyes and to be welcomed and embraced. That until you have that direct experience, it's a concept. So you can't explore a place you've only read about. The only way that I know through the meditative experience, and there's different types of meditation. Sufi dancers often come to mind when they're spinning and they're letting themselves go and they're surrendering. They're embracing God. They're letting go to the God love and dancing that love. That's a meditation. To inquire within the meditation again and again and again and become familiar, become embodied with an experience takes years. And the ego says, well, that's too long and it's not satisfying and it's not getting me what I want soon enough. And so it convinces you, no, just go back to go do another workshop, do another retreat, read another book. Find another way, find a teacher, find something that's easier. And oftentimes it works for a little bit of time. That's called personal development. Do your personal development, it's important. But the spiritual development is, who are you really? Imperishable, unchanging. Just like the sky beyond the storms, the movie, or the screen upon which the movie of mind plays, the ubiquitous silence into which sound temporarily interrupts. And we learn how to allow, stay awake to the unchanging nature of stillness, grace, love, awareness, presence, wholeness. Watching our own mind tell stories and try to get our attention again. You can't necessarily stop the mind from telling its stories. That's what it does. It's always making stuff up. It's one of its beautiful gifts. It's how we make up such an amazing world. The mind is always making stuff up and creating things. So it won't stop telling you the story of yourself necessarily. It will greatly abate over time. But the idea is, when it does, to not argue with it. If it says, I'm insignificant, you don't argue with that story. Wait a minute, yes I am. That's baloney. Don't tell me that. That's not true. And then you got to remind yourself all the ways you're significant. Don't argue with it. It's just mind. Mind has no allegiance to truth. It mimics it. It tries to mimic truth, but it has no wiring to truth. So you don't argue with it. You don't try to push it away. You don't try to solve it or tell a better story, although that can be handy. It's certainly better than staying in that crappy story. But rather than be arguing with your own dream as just a different part of the dream, a better part of the dream, arguing with the pernicious or the difficult part of the dream, but to pull your awareness out constantly and ask, oh, and what is aware of this dialogue? And what is aware of this struggle? And what is aware of my mind trying to get my attention? A thought has no power unless you believe it. A thought is just a thought. Just a chemical doing in the mind. It's just a thought. It's when it is believed that it gets power. So the inquiry again is within the stillness, within the sitting. To notice all the ways that the mind activates and inquire, what is that happening within? And we get lost a little bit and say, well, it's happening within my mind. All right. So another way to ask it is, what is aware of that? That's what I'm asking. Within what embrace, within what unchanging something is all of the transience of self coming and going, and you don't have to wrestle with that transience. Be aware of it from the grace of stillness. Keep pulling the awareness out. Wow, my mind is really active today. Oh, there's the mind. There's it's I can't get out of it. Where do I go? Where do I go? That's all happening, all that noise, all that confusion today. Some meditations are really confusing and noisy. All that's happening within what? And pull back, pull the awareness back and feel into something that is unchanging. That's you. But these thoughts feel like so much me. Yeah, they do. Until you get aware of, until you awaken the true you within which that dream of self is coming and going. And it's such a liberation. That self, that false self will diminish and will get less vociferous because you stop believing it. And the mind is, as a computer, is just a program. It's just a function of trying to be efficient. If it keeps throwing something out there that is not believed, it'll stop. It'll still try it every once in a while just to see if maybe today you're going to believe the story. But after a while, it stops because it's not efficient. If you're not believing it, it's not efficient. And how do you not believe it? By knowing what you really are. And how do you know what you really are? Through direct experience, through meditation, to feel into the imperishable nature of the skyness of you, observing the storm of your mind. And get familiar with that feeling. You don't just read about it, don't just watch videos, don't just engage in the dialogues. Go there again and again and again within the meditations to become familiar, embodied as a ever-awakening grace of being. And the ego will say, I'm not there yet, this is dissatisfying. What do you want? Do you want truth? Then you have willingness to be devoted and a willingness to have patience and a willingness to stay on the path. Any questions, insights, observations, inquiries, anything about this? It's like, well, there was something there that kind of makes sense, but I want to know a little bit more about. I'm also, yeah. Hey,
no, it was
Jay.
Very helpful this morning.
Yeah, you've been in my heart, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I look forward to our session tomorrow.
Me too. Me too. What today for you lands the most? How would you articulate what the insight or the aha that goes, oh, that's right, that's helpful?
I constantly lose track of the difference between the story and what's true in my heart and my soul versus the story, and I get caught up in the story, and that just becomes me.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
So, what do you feel right now is the little something that you might want to marinate in to help you to not get so caught up in the story again? Because it's, we all know it's pernicious. The damn story is so loud and so dominant. It's hard not to. So that's why this work takes a while.
Yeah, it's almost like my disease that you're aware of, mm-hmm. And how that thinking, that addict thinking can take over in 2 seconds and just run the show. And to me, it's the same thing. And I love what you said about the peace and the love and the stillness and the sky is always there.
Yeah.
And to look through the cloud, I mean, just when I meditate, I struggle with, to picture that, all that. That's where I really have to start at the very basics of that stillness.
Beautiful.
I put a reminder on my phone when you told me a week ago to be still, and it pops up every hour on the hour, and it's so helpful.
Yeah, be what you are.
Yeah, yeah.
And it has to be okay with us initially to let it just be a glimmer or a spark that can often be so fleeting. I remember in my early meditations that there'd be a moment, let's say my inquiry was, what if I didn't have a story? What if I wasn't in this dream? What if that wasn't present? Like, what would be there? And I'd get a glimpse of something that felt vast or peaceful or loving. And it's the second it would happen, the mind would jump in and go, ooh, what's happening? What is that? Is that it? Can I use that? It's the ego body going, can I use that? Can I take hold of that? And then it would be gone.
Yeah, yeah.
So to do that for however long, years if it need to be, but to watch it, to go, okay, so there was that, to know what's happening. And then again, take a breath and feel into the ubiquitous peace and go, wait a minute. There's more peace than there is mind. There's more peace than there is noise. Okay. And then there's another little moment, another little glimmer of, oh, there it is. And the mind comes back again and tries to grab it. And let that happen for as long as it needs to happen. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what happens.
Yeah. So what do you want?
Peace. I want to not believe in the story so much. I want to be able to separate the story from the truth.
Okay. So let's go back to that first one. I want peace. What is that? What does that mean?
Peace of mind, to me, inner peace. It's a feeling that's hard to explain, and I haven't had it for very long periods of time in my life.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's within the story. If everything is okay, then I have peace. So if my fiance is happy with me, if my son's happy with me, if my business is okay, if it's not raining today, if it's 15 conditions have to be met, and there's some peace there.
Exhausting, isn't it?
It's exhausting. Yeah. It's so hard to chase.
So let me see if this helps. We have to want something that the ego can't promise us. So if we just say I want peace, the personal identity will say, okay, I'll work on that. I'll try to be more peaceful. I'll try to be more quiet. I'll try to let go of these crappy thoughts. I'll try to know truth. I mean, it promises you that it'll behave. It's like being in a dysfunctional relationship. And as soon as you call it out, it says, oh, I'm sorry. No, I'll behave. So we have to want something that the ego can't promise us. I want peace. The ego goes, I'll work on that. What if what you really want, Jay, is you?
Mm.
It is obscured, it's veiled, that the noise of the personal identity is so pernicious, it just keeps getting in the way. But what if what you really want is just the eternal beingness of you?
Right.
Good.
And it's so clouded.
Yeah.
With these outside influences constantly.
Yeah. Actually, it's not clouded by the outside influences, it's clouded by your thoughts about them.
Right.
Isn't that, it's just wild, isn't it?
It is. I read something that, I forget where you sent it, I think, that you're not clouded by your past, you're clouded by the images and the story of your past.
That's right.
It's not your past.
Your suffering is not in the story. Your suffering is in the belief in the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you just keep pulling back and just keep going, okay, this current shit show of mind is happening within grace. And grace is not a state of mind. Grace is my eternal nature of being. And we wake up for a second, and we fall back asleep. We wake up for a little bit longer, fall back asleep. And we just keep doing that for as long as it takes until the awakened self is awake.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you're on the path, Jay.
It feels good to be on.
Yeah.
My impatience wants me further down the road.
Exactly. And the impatience is what is aware of the impatience? Awareness.
Mm.
There's the eternal nature of being going, watching the mind be impatient.
Mm-hmm.
You just keep pulling that awareness out, keep broadening it.
Right.
And everything that is disturbing, everything that isn't love is witnessed by love. It's that teaching that we've talked about where if we ask for anything, I want to be more at peace. I want to be more at peace. Then life basically says, okay, great. Then I'm going to have to show you directly all the ways you're not at peace.
Mm.
Oh, so that you can see them, so that you can be aware of them. Rumi's poem, your task is not to seek for love, but to seek for and find within you all the barriers you have built against it. So when you say, I want to be at peace, it's natural that source will say, then let me show you your mind and how absolutely disturbed it is. Because you have to see it and to recognize what's getting in your way.
Mm. Right.
No, I just want the peace. It's like, well, then let me show you the dream so you can see it. That's what's going on.
Yeah, I like what you said. Switch that with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Beautiful. I look forward to our time tomorrow.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it. It's helpful to everyone.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, my friends. Another couple of minutes. Any other share or reflection or question? So the invitation is to keep broadening the awareness, keep being more interested in the vastness within which transience happens. Silence does not come and go. Be less interested in the sounds that interrupt and be more interested in the silence that is permanent, that is unwavering. Our thoughts of self, our identity is constantly being recreated by the mind. The egoic identity is constantly being reshaped, reworked, tweaked, trying to get it to behave, trying to get it to stabilize. Be less interested in that. Notice it, but be less interested in that than you are with the imperishable wholeness of being within which the dream of self is unfolding. It's like lucid dreaming. Once you start to look for the dreamer, once you start to look outside of the dream and say, what's there? Just be more interested in that, whatever that feels like, whatever that appears to be or reveals itself to be. What is the nature of the embrace within which my mind is struggling with trying to hold on to joy and trying to hold on to happiness and trying to get rid of suffering and struggle. Typically, we're fighting our mind with our own mind. And that's all happening within the embrace of the grace of being. Become more familiar with the grace of being by looking for it, feeling into it, pointing your awareness to it. And I'll end with this. It's a very simple thing, but I do this a lot, so you've probably heard it a lot. But in this moment right now, bring your awareness to your left knee. Got it? You didn't just grow a left knee. It's been there all along. Within our meditations, we can point our awareness. We can expand our awareness. We can grow our awareness to experience, to look for what is this embrace, what is this larger, imperishable embrace of grace. What does that feel like? What's the experience of that? It's there. It's always there. We just need to learn to be less identified with the interruptions and the distractions of our own thoughts and feel into what is the awareness within which all thoughts come and go and arise and pass. Beautiful, my friends. If anyone is inclined to make a donation to Satsang, there are links in the chat box. Thank you for being here. And I think we'll see what happens. But next Sunday, I'll do it via Zoom, but I might start opening up my home again to like 5 or 6 people to have a little bit of live presence as well. So we'll see. All right. And if anyone does want to work with me one-on-one, as many of you already are, but others, just go to my website, chessedwards.com, and there's all sorts of opportunities to do so. All right. Blessings and love. And we are all one. Be well.